Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. Bismillah. Bismillah walhamdulillah. Wassalatu wassalamu ala rasulillah wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa man wala. All praise is due to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We thank him, we praise him, we glorify him. We beseech him to send his choicest salutations upon his most beloved sallallahu ta'ala alayhi wa sallam, and upon all those who choose to tread in his path until the last day. Alhamdulillah, about almost a year ago, a little less than that, I had the unique blessing and privilege of being able to lead a group for Hajj. May Allah grant us all the tawfiq to again be able to visit his blessed house in the city of Makkah al-Mukarramah, and to visit his beloved sallallahu ta'ala alayhi wasallam in the illuminated city Madinatul Munawwara, the city of the Prophet alayhi salam, inshallah soon. And if you went for Hajj last year, you know that it was a real majestic experience. That the rain, it fell in Mina, the rain, it fell in Mecca, the rain, it fell in Muzdalifah, it fell in Medina. And on the day of Arafah, the 9th of Dhul Hijjah, the day that the Prophet sallallahu ta'ala alayhi wasallam has said of Al-Hajj Arafah, that the Hajj is Arafah. That most auspicious day on the Islamic calendar, when we stood at the day of Arafah, the rains, they started to fall unlike any other rainfall that anyone might have ever experienced. And as soon as that first drop hit, you heard complete silence across the plain of Arafah. And each and every person turned face towards the direction of the Kaaba with their hands raised to the skies and tears dropping from their eyes, because nobody wanted to miss that moment of barakah to make dua to Allah from their heart. It felt as if with every raindrop that was striking the top of every tent, Allah was affirming another dua and another dua's acceptance. The day wrapped up and people started to gather themselves to move on from the blessed place of Arafah, I went with a young man who was in our group to freshen up our wudu. And as we were coming back, there weren't millions of pilgrims around us, but there was still a large number of people who were in the same area that our tents in Arafah were situated. And amongst them, there was an elderly man, probably as old as your grandfather, if you can picture him in your head, who had also seemingly just made his wudu, but had removed his ihram completely, was wearing nothing, and his towels were hanging from a tree branch. And there were some people who were standing and watching and staring with real disgust on their face, and others who were looking and laughing and pointing a finger. And there were some who were quite angry and irate that how could somebody do something like this? And there were even those who were chastising the people who were getting upset. And then there were some who were standing around and not really reacting in any way. And the young man who was with me turned to me and said, "You take off the top of your ihram, I'm going to take off the top of mine, and let's go and cover him and give him some privacy." And I turned to Allah Azza wa Jal and raised my hands to the skies and said, "Ya Rabbi, give me a heart like this young man's, a heart that understands how to see in the way that your beloved sallallahu alaihi wasallam saw things, a heart that sees through a vision that is attached to your divine presence, one that yields consciousness and knows how to make choices and decisions, has depth of perspective and wisdom, a heart that was beating in a body that saw everything that everyone else saw, but somehow saw it differently." That's the kind of heart that we want to aspire to have for ourselves. You and I are likely in similar situations. And the difficulty of these days has been experientially quite unique for people of all backgrounds. May Allah make it easy for all of us. Some of us have fallen ill ourselves. Some of us have seen loved ones fall ill. Some of us are isolated to our homes and haven't left for weeks, almost a month already. Some of us have had the difficulty of having loved ones hospitalized and we haven't been able to visit them in the hospital. Some of us have had loved ones, those who are near and dear to our hearts, pass away from this world, and we couldn't be with them in their last moments, let alone even pray the janazah prayer over them. Some of us have had the difficulty of not being able to choose to stay home because we have to still make the paycheck that we need week to week to be able to put food on the plates of our family's dinner table, to pay the rent on the home that we don't own. Some of us have no choice but to still go and risk exposure to certain things. May Allah make things easy for all of us. And why I start with the perspective of this young man who saw things differently is that you and I can now choose perspective on the situation we find ourselves in. Not to discount anybody else's reality, but to bring it back to subjective experience and to think that this can be a moment of isolation. It could be a moment of aloneness and render loneliness, or I can choose to make it a period of solitude and to think about the world that's around me right now and where and how I will play a critical role in ensuring that people are actively able to heal properly. The advice and admonition that's given to us to stay at home is something that each one of us should honor, that we don't want to be the direct or indirect cause of anyone whose situation might be distinct from ours, that even if we don't render symptoms from this ailment, that someone else could catch it and either they themselves or someone close to them could then in turn contract it and they could be devastated for weeks and even pass away, God forbid. But where the advice stops at saying stay at home, we as Muslims have to dig deep and take it a step further and see with a perspective, a real vision of the heart, true basira, that the opportunities are there for all of us to engage in the completion of good deeds in abundance. That we have right now in our own country so many people who are going to be stricken by financial hardship and difficulty from this epidemic. May Allah make things easy for them. We have governmental apparatus that has failed so many, taking weeks to put together a plan that will give a minimal amount of financial assistance. And so where they fail, we step forward to do what we can do. People will literally not have enough food to be able to feed themselves and their children. In New York City, where I live, the city has put out opportunity for people to go to 400 locations to get a few meals Monday through Friday and even deliver meals to their homes. There are groups of people who have created services to just give food to emergency workers and hospital staff and postal workers and firefighters and to people in need. But when we bring it back to ourselves, if we're not the ones delivering it, we can still be the one to provide resources to ensure that somebody else will have a meal to eat. Because in our tradition, our Prophet sallallahu ta'ala alayhi wasallam, he says to us, وَإِحْسَانِ لَجَارِكْ تَكُنْ مُؤْمِنًا, that give your neighbor ihsan, give them their right. You will be a believer. You will be one who has faith, iman. And a neighbor in our tradition is not simply the person who lives right next door to you in any kind of perimeter of your home. But a neighbor in our tradition is 40 homes to the right, 40 homes ahead of you, 40 homes to the left, 40 homes behind you, that we are taught that we are not where we are meant to be if our stomachs are full, but our neighbor's stomachs are hungry and empty. May Allah never make us those who have to feel hunger in order to understand what it means to be hungry, my sisters and brothers. That there are right now individuals in our country who are incarcerated in prisons and not being released, exposed to dense populations packed upon one another, regardless of where and how this pandemic has reached them. And many are experiencing the illness. That you have in countries throughout the world, places like Myanmar and Bangladesh, where our Rohingya sisters and brothers are still fleeing ethnic cleansing and genocide, living in areas that are so densely populated that there is no way for them to practice social distancing. Our Uyghur sisters and brothers who are there in internment camps still sitting in China. Our sisters and brothers in various parts of Africa who most of the world neglects still because of anti-Blackness that runs rampant and globalized supremacy that has us think of Black people in the ways that we do. Who in their continent, they only eradicated days before this pandemic, the last case of the Ebola virus. So much after the rest of the world. Our sisters and brothers in Syria, whose country has been on fire for years. Our sisters and brothers in Yemen, who have now found themselves in a state of peace of 2 weeks of a ceasefire. And our sisters and brothers in the place of Gaza, who live in open air prisons that are impacted beyond this circumstance with little to no access to clean water and electricity only at some times of a given week, let alone a population whose age is mostly people who are quite young. They're still in this circumstance. We can't say that there's nothing for us to do, but there's so much, in fact, for you and I to do. And where we dig deep and we refine our inside and see that our living of faith, our living of Iman, our living of Islam, our being Muslim is not ever meant to be something that is self-serving, but to utilize these moments and these days to self-actualize and to think who it is that you and I want to be, and that clean slate that's ahead of us, the openings and opportunities that Allah has given to us to say, here now is indication for you to know where you stand in relation to who it is that you want to become. Nobody can do the deeds for you and I. We have to do them ourselves. And the state of the heart that we have, our real innate sense of spirituality, how we know that we are benefiting from the solitude that we have, or we are casting perspective that is intertwined with a perspective of real taqwa, real consciousness of Allah, that decisions and choices would not be made with selfishness at this time, that egocentricity would be pushed out of the way. And we would see that our goal is to not be people who live independently of one another, but we would strive to embrace the highest level of the self that says interdependence is the mode through which we function. We are all connected to one another. That your prayer is not simply your prayer, your practice and ritual is not simply just for you right now and ever. But your fajr is as much for you as it is for all those in the world who need for you to act upon what it is you have capacity to. That your abandonment of haram and your fulfillment of the fara'id should not be done through burdensome senses of obligation or prohibition, but with real love and real compassion and real mercy, you strive to be the reason that people have hope in this world and never the reason that people might dread it. And you simply do right because it's the right thing to do, even if you are sitting in your home, that you are thinking and planning and executing. Physical separation does not necessitate spiritual disconnectedness. And where we are meant to be people of both the outward and the inward, of externals and internals, and we live in the legacy of the best of creation, sallallahu ta'ala alayhi wasallam, who would take opportunity of isolation and solitude to better his understanding of how this world truly functioned and what his role is actually within it. I, for one, am so grateful for the blessing and gift of Islam that I have. And I sit and I think so much about what it is that is being revealed to me, not just about who it is that I am, but what it is that I can aspire towards being. Difficulty, trial, hardship in and of itself does not become the cause of change. But what difficulty, trial, tribulation, hardship yield is a lot of revelation. Things are being revealed to us about ourselves. Things are being revealed to us about how this world functions. The paradoxical nature of the self is such that the only way one can understand the self is through the self. And the adaptation and assimilation to what it is that we find in this given circumstance is one that is unique to a person who has sound belief. That the messenger of God, sallallahu ta'ala alayhi wasallam, has told us that the state of the believer is such that it will change 40 times in a day. And the one who has no belief is the same for 40 years in a row. And here and now, where we have revelation coming through difficulty, take a look at yourself and what you have spent your time doing, but not in a self-deprecating way. That you reflect and introspect and say, what is the khair that I engaged in when this day concludes? You look back with a vision that is not of these eyes, but a vision of this heart. You ask Allah to help you to see you as He sees you, to enable you to have eyes that are similar to the vision of Allah's eyes, where He looks not at your bodies, but He looks at your hearts and your actions. And you acknowledge the good that comes from you, as well as be comfortable with the things that come from you that are not good. That you see what it is that you have spent your time doing in futility, that bears no benefit or detriment, and says that this is not what these days were given to me for. And you say that this goodness that came for me, tomorrow I will strive to do it even better. And this evil that comes from me, I will stand up to it, and I will not be a person of greed and selfishness who thinks about just myself and not about others at all. And the futility, the things that I do that really have no point, I'll sit and think about who it is that I want to be and where my future self, were they to meet my current self, would they be thanking me for the way I spent my time? I've met a lot of people in the last moments of their life. May Allah grant them an infinite amount of peace. And there is not a person who I have met who has said to me in the final moments of their existence in this world, as they move on to the next phase of existence, that I wish I had more time to just stare at my cell phone. I wish I had more time to go back and spend more time just mindlessly searching through social media. But they said, I wish I had more time to spend with loved ones. I wish I had more time to express a life of authenticity. I wish I had been more forgiving so that I wouldn't have cut off the relationships that I cut off. I wish I hadn't spent so much time sitting and work at a desk and missing opportunity of being with my children and being with my loved ones. I wish I had used that time better. And the revelations are not just about us and our temperament and our values and our sense of ethics and what guides our moral compass and our behaviors and our habits. But the revelations are also about the society that's around us. And we see that this is not an ailment that has universal application as much as people believe it does. But it highlights the sheer discrimination and stratification that society around the world are built upon. You can look at city after city where people have passed away from this illness. And you can compare the percentage of minorities, non-Black people of color and Black people of color in comparison to people who come from privilege and majority backgrounds. And the overall percentage yields of Black people contracting this virus and passing away, although they do not make anywhere near the majority population of a given place, they are the gross majority of people impacted, contracting, and dying from the illness. May Allah protect us from ever being racist. We see fissures that are rooted in principles of race and class. But the love of Al-Wadud, Azza wa Jal, is unconditional and unqualified. And we are not meant to be people who connect purely at the level of externals, shared race, shared ethnicity, and shared class. But people who are shared internals, shared values, and shared hearts. And so in most of the cities that you live in, likely there are parts of those cities that people prior to this were stricken by poverty and low income, no healthcare. In many of your cities, there are masjids that are $1 million and chandeliers are millions of dollars and parking lots are millions of dollars. And just miles away, there are cities that have masjids as well that are not so far from your own, that still serve demographics and populations who come to worship the same God as you and I. But they will likely have to shut the doors to their centers because they don't have the revenues and funds to sustain it. If not Muslims, who will be stepping up to make sure that things are being taken care of? It is an unprecedented time, and it requires you and I to look at ourselves in unprecedented ways, to find what is innately good within us, to embrace our beauty and our light so that we can be a source of illumination, a source of love, a source of life for all people, regardless of their race, their class, their gender, their ethnicity, their cultural heritage, their country of origin. You want to spend some time thinking about the immediate needs, and also what is it going to look like 3 months from now, 6 months from now, a year from now, where our economy might be hurting and some of us might have lost money in the stock market or might not be getting a bonus that we would get. But there are so many who months from now, even after they get stimulus checks and loans from the government, they're still going to have a lot of issues. May Allah make it easy for them. There's going to be countries in this world whose economies don't bounce back. But because of things like imperialism and colonization, things that ravage nations across the world, drones that are continuing to drop everywhere, their economies will not take months, they will take years. And they won't be in a vacuum. It will still be as other conflict and other warfare and other unjust and iniquitous policies of majority superpower countries rain fire on them. So turn to the people who are in your closest circles in proximity. And don't let your questions be about, what am I going to do if I can't play Salatul Tarawih in Ramadan, or I'm not able to do certain things that I am used to? Cut out the eyes and cut out the ego. And think about why these rituals were given to me, for spiritual elevation, so that I could have a vision of the heart, real perspective, real basira, that would see where and how I could be so bold and so courageous and so audacious that I will turn to my given community and say, what are we going to build right now for those who are going to have need months from now, years from now, preemptively, consciously, with mindfulness and strategy? And we have the skills, the knowledge, the resources, the credentials, the wealth to do it. You just got to believe from in here that Allah's promise is true, and that no giving that you give will ever reduce what you have, and that you're not doing it to launch a PR campaign or prove that Islam is the most amazing thing in the world, but you simply do right because it's the right thing to do. When you and I look back at this moment that we find ourselves in years from now, we want to be able to look back with a sense that we did everything that we could to help others in their moment of need. And then when we stand in front of Allah, we want to live with a consciousness and mindfulness in this moment right now, that on that day when each and every one of us is taken into account, and may Allah make us from amongst those who are granted entrance into His Jannah without any judgment, that when we are taken into account for what we did in this world, and all of the questions of why things went the way that they went will be answered on that day. We want to be people who, when Allah asks us about ourselves individually, that we are able to say that, Ya Rabb, we fulfilled the purpose that you had intended us for. And we did all of the things that we had ability to do. If you need to eat less right now so that you will save more money and it can give more to someone else, then eat less. If you have to change habits and behavior and give up a little bit more or sacrifice more, do it so that somebody else's life will be able to live a little bit better. And you find what it is that you can offer, and you go out and offer it each and every day, so that we can play our role in really helping this world to heal. If I can ever help any of you in any of what it is that you have going on, please don't hesitate in reaching out. It would be an honor to be able to serve you in whatever capacity that I can. And I would ask that you make, if possible, a special dua for the city that I live in, New York City, that has the highest rates of coronavirus in our country. And every single day, we're getting news of more and more people dying, more and more people falling ill. That when I walk through the streets, I see more and more people rummaging through garbage bags, trying to just find something for themselves. And person after person asking for assistance of any kind. And as we close, I would ask that you join me in a short dua, because where we are not able to do certain things together that we are used to, our congregational prayers, our Jummah prayers, even coming together to pray the Janazah prayer, we're still able to adapt a growth mindset and not innovate or create things that are not of our deen, but to engage in dua and share in collective supplication, to be connective and cohesive in fundraising campaigns and strategies that we create to go and help others, to prep and plan and say, what will Ramadan be like for those who live alone? What will it be like for converts who already didn't have so many people looking after them? What will it be like for people who struggle with physical and mental wellness and they are already stigmatized? What will it be like for people who are not of the predominant race or culture in the masjid that I attend? And how do I start thinking of a frame of mind as to where I can be a source of remedy for everything that is going on? And so if you will join me for a short dua that we will make together, inshallah. And I would ask that you center yourself to the space that we're in, that any distractions that you have, leave them behind and allow for yourself to understand that it is not merely your physical presence, but your emotional, your spiritual, your mental presence that will help us to elevate this prayer to its highest of levels. And as we make dua, I would ask you to remind yourself who it is that we are turning towards and to have real aspiration in your prayer. To not just ask Allah of Jannah, but ask Him for the highest level of Jannah. To not just ask Allah to protect you, but to ask Allah to protect everybody. To not just ask of Allah to give you something that is mundane, but ask of Allah to give you the best in this world and in the next. He is Allah, He is Ghani, He is free of any need. Before Him there was nothing, after Him there will be nothing. He is the first, He is the last, our sustainer, our provider, the one who is not simply watching us, but watching over us. And where we might not be able to answer the question of why certain things happen in specific, we trust in a creator who is more merciful to us than a mother is to his child and simply wants what's best for us. That we turn to that God, knowing that He is not simply hearing and listening, but answering every prayer that we are making as we turn to Him on this blessed day of Jum'ah. Before I conclude, just to remind everyone that this is not meant to be in place of the Jum'ah prayer, but wherever you are in the world and the time of the day that it falls upon you, if you are hearing this in the constraints of the window for the time of Dhuhr, that you will just pray Dhuhr in your home. But even there, the intention is what is rewarded by our Lord. And so where you long to again be with those who you want to be with, appreciate everything that Allah has given to you and adopt a perspective that is a vision of the heart that helps you to see what is there and what could potentially become, as opposed to focusing on what is not and creating a paralysis for yourself. And so join me as we conclude in a dua together. May Allah accept it from us and grant to us even better than what it is that we are asking. Allahumma ameen. Allahumma laka alhamdu kama yanbaghi li wajhika wa azim sultanik. Laka alhamdu hamdan tahiran tayyiban mubarakan fihi la yawm ad-din. Allahumma salli ala sayyidina Muhammad fil awwalin wa fil akhirin. اللهم صل وسلم وبارك على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وبارك وسلم يا أرحم الراحمين. اللهم إنك عفو كريم تحب العفو فاعف عنا. يا مقلب القلوب ثبت قلوبنا على دينك. اللهم اجعلنا من المخلصين. اللهم اجعلنا من المخلصين. اللهم اجعلنا من المخلصين. We begin this supplication in your name, Ya Allah, and beseech you to send your choicest salutations upon your most beloved, sallallahu ta'ala alayhi wasallam. We ask that you shower your infinite mercy upon this gathering, granting each and every one who is present herein and our loved ones only the best in this world and the best in the next. We ask, Ya Allah, that if all of us are meant to be together only at this time, at this place, whether we are young or old, male or female, regardless of our race, our ethnicity, our social class, our country of origin, our cultural heritage, whether we are Muslim or come from a different walk of life, Ya Rabbi, If our individual hearts are meant to be in the presence of all other hearts that are gathered here only at this time, at this place, then gather us all together again in the best of places in the world beyond this one. Ya Allah, Ya Hakim, Ya Ahkam al-Hakimin, most wise of those who have wisdom, increase us in all that is good as we turn to you on this blessed day of Jummah. You who are the source of life, of truth, of sustenance and love, we turn to you in pursuit of true knowledge and understanding. In these days where so many of us are trying to understand, make us from the wise and those who only seek out wisdom. Grant us contentment that only wisdom can, a contentment that escapes so many. Thank you for all those you have placed in our lives who have spoken words of truth, love, and wisdom to us, even when we didn't want to hear it. Grant us the wisdom to know when you are using someone to speak instruction into our hearts and the strength and courage to follow through with that guidance, even when it is difficult. Grant us wisdom that does not lead us simply to wealth in the world, but leads us to real love and real understanding. In our pursuit of knowledge, make us those who find that which our hearts are in need of. And guide us always as we travel this world with an ever-increasing thirst for real truth and understanding. It is usually the ignorant who believe they always know, the unaware who think they understand. Make us those, Ya Allah, who are always in pursuit of growth and never satisfied with where we currently stand. Make us those who always think before we speak and take the time to learn about those things that our minds think about. Make us those who are wise enough to say, I don't know when we don't, and keep us from ever becoming those who have an answer, a thought, or opinion on everything. Make us those who increase our wisdom through sound reflection and contemplation, and keep us from becoming those who only gain understanding through experience. Grant us a deep control over our emotions and never let us become those whose anger overpowers our intelligence. To know others is intelligence, but to know ourselves is hikmah, real wisdom. To exert control over others is a sign of strength, but to be able to control ourselves is real power. Make us from the strongest of the believers and let us never be those who gain the world at the expense of losing our souls. For those who find themselves making tough decisions in these days, grant us strength of all kinds. For the doctors, nurses, and hospital staff workers, for the store workers and public transportation staff, for the parents, the children, the community leaders and servants, for the corner store owners and postal workers, the pharmacists, the delivery people who bring us our food, the funeral directors and truck supply drivers. Put barakah into their efforts and ours and grant us success and protection in each of our endeavors. Put into our beings a desire for nothing less than true excellence and to push ourselves to give our very best, especially in support of all those who are at the front lines facing and confronting this illness. Let each of them and us excel at all that we do. And with each success in this world, grant us more success in regards to the world beyond this one. Make us those who act only with knowledge and to never leave any knowledge we have been given unacted upon. In these days where help is needed by so many, show us how to use our knowledge, our skills, our resources with wisdom, to use it to bring benefit to this world and all those who are in it, and to be a means of benefit for us in the world beyond this one. Help us to use what we have learned, the skills that we have acquired, and the relationships that we have built to make this world a little bit better in ways that only we uniquely can when we do for others before we do for ourselves. Help us to look forward and let our foresight be rooted in courage and never fear. Let us meet the future with hope and make us the hope that we need for our future to be filled with love, life, and light. Send us only those who will be our helpers and supporters, and protect us from any harm or tribulation, any affliction, anxiety, anguish, or ailment of any kind. Make us those who are never afraid to dream. Give us inspiration to work towards achieving each of our heart's aspirations, to find strength through service and success in each failure. In these days when many of us find ourselves in solitude more often than we have ever before, help us to deepen in our beneficial knowing of ourselves, to know our strengths and to live by them, to know our character and how to increase it, Never let any of us feel any pain, but if we do, then help us to know how to heal from it, to know our value and how to share it, to know our blessings and how to be grateful for them, to know our wants and see where they conflict with our needs, to know our shortcomings and how to confront and defeat them, to know how to seek forgiveness from those that we have wronged and to then go out and seek it, to know what charity is by being generous with our wealth and our time, to know what integrity is by being honest and truthful, and to know what goodness is by extending our hands without qualification to all those who are in need. Help us to know who it is that we are and not let the people we are today be afraid ever to meet the people we can be tomorrow. Help us to truly know ourselves better each day we are in this world. And through that understanding, to better ourselves in our knowing of you and your mercy, to know of you and your love, Ya Allah. Protect us inwardly and to be always in control of our hearts. Give us hearts that feel anger when anyone is abused and the confidence and compassion needed to build for them what they are in need of. Give us hearts that feel sadness when anyone loses a loved one, especially in these days, and the gentleness and mercy needed to be there for them fully. Give us hearts that feel joy when any one of us succeeds, and the love and hope needed to celebrate that achievement. Make us from amongst those who live with true contentment every day of our lives and grant us an abode in the place of ultimate contentment in the world beyond this one. Allow for our beings to always be filled with self-love so that we might go out and share that love with others, rather than a love of ourselves that keeps us from being everything that we are able to be. When our hearts are heavy and they are filled with darkness, bring people to us who illuminate them through kindness, compassion, and love. Make us always the reason that people have hope in this world, and never the reason that people might dread it. Make us those who use our strength, our power, our sheer will and determination to break down the walls of inequity, injustice, and oppression that confine so many today. Help us truly to be those who come together on principles of truth, patience, and mercy, so that we can do for others what we have the ability to do. Inspire us to start thinking now of everything people will need once this illness passes and how and who we will build with to fulfill those needs. Inspire us to think of the abused, the widowed, the orphans, the refugees, the incarcerated, those who have no health care. Inspire us to think of those with no jobs, the undocumented, the poor and needy, those who have rights over us. Inspire us to be generous and honest, people of integrity and sound character. Inspire us to live our Islam in such a way that it brings benefit to all those who are around us and uplifts every day the hearts that beat deeply within us as we go out and do the things which others say cannot be done. For those who find themselves ill, make this ailment for them a means of purification in this world and a means of elevation in the next. Grant each one a complete healing and shifa, each one a quick and easy recovery. For those who have passed, Ya Allah, we ask that you shower upon them your infinite mercy, grant them peace in their graves, and show them from within it their place in your garden of paradise. And bring relief to the hearts of those who still remain in this world, longing to have been with their loved ones, many of whom could not have even seen them in their last moments, let alone prayed over them and performed their funeral rites. Grant them the best of reunions, Ya Allah, in the highest level of your Jannah, in the company of your most beloved, peace and blessings be upon him in the world beyond this one. Ya Allah, you are with us. Though we cannot see you, we know that you see us and that you are always by our side. You love us more than we could know, and you know each tear that we have cried. We trust you. Guide us and hold us until we are recovered and well, inwardly and outwardly. Relieve us of all pain and free us from any suffering. Help us to obtain strength for the sake of the weary, hope for those who are discouraged, and joy for each and every one who is downhearted. Protect us always from hearts that are not humble, tongues that are not wise, and eyes that have forgotten how to cry. Forgive us for our shortcomings and guide and bless us all. ربنا تقبل منا إنك أنت السميع العليم وتب علينا يا مولانا إنك أنت التواب الرحيم وصلى الله تعالى على خير خلقه محمد وآله وصحبه أجمعين برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين. جزاكم الله خير. Thank you all so much for joining us here. And thank you to ISNA, the Islamic Society of North America, for facilitating this opportunity and letting me be a part of this beautiful gathering. And again, if I could help any of you in whatever it is that you have going on in these days, please don't hesitate in reaching out. But as your brother who loves each one of you deeply, please do not let any days pass without you going and doing something for somebody else. These are moments of khair and benefit, and the doors are open for us to be a much needed source of mercy, hope, and love for Allah's creation. So do what you can. May Allah protect and reward each of you. May He guide and bless us all. Wallahu ta'ala alam wa billahi tawfiq. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuhu.